Show of hands. After that intro, how many of you can tell I was a theater kid? And welcome, friends, and mostly enemies. Today, we are reviewing Peace Talks by Jim Butcher. Now, if you're like me, you followed the whole series as soon as you got your hands on the first book because it's awesome. But he took a long time to get around to writing this. I mean, it was not gonna lie, I was mad about it. Peace Talks is, I think it's like something like the 20th entry. He's deep. We in this. It's like the 20th or so book in this thing. And at some point in this video, there's going to be spoilers. But before that, I want to give kind of a general review so that people who haven't read it yet can still watch it, find out if they want to buy it or if Jim is slipping, that kind of thing. And of course, after that, there will be a spoiler ahead warning, and then we'll get into all of these discussion points. So, general review. If you follow this series, you no doubt have a few things about Mr. Butcher's writing that irritate you, just like I do. The constant repeating of things we already know. Now, while he might do that to clue newbies into the series or to remind us of things that he thinks we might not remember, it gets old. It really gets old. And there's only so many ways you can repeat something before eventually you contradict yourself. And unfortunately, that is a quirk of his writing. He has repeated a few things, specifically mechanics of the universe, relationships between characters. He's repeated these things so many times that there's been some tiny little contradictions, especially in the magic system. And that's a nitpicky thing. The contradictions are so small and nitpicky, it really almost boils down to semantics most of the time. But I'm the guy buying it to read it. Outside of that, and the fact that I'm irritated that the book was supposed to be longer and his editor broke it up, which, as a reader, whoo boy, that pisses me off. I should have got the whole damn thing. I'm mad about it. But outside of that, solid entry in the series. I mean, he's filled us in on a few things that we've been waiting to get more info on. Specifically, the stuff about Dresden's past. We got some juicy details there. We have some very interesting developments with the Fomar. We have some expansion of stakes, as you would expect. You know, as this series has grown, we've seen a progressive expansion of stakes. And there's been world-ending level calamities before. But Jim has expanded the stakes in a different way this time. And I don't want to give you spoilers, so I can't elaborate on that until a little bit later. But the stakes are up. And yes. So 7, 8 out of 10. There's some things I wanted to see that I didn't see. They're probably going to be in the sequel to this one. That was supposed to be part of the same book before his editor broke it up. And I'm waiting on pins and needles, frankly. There was some stuff that fans have been waiting for a long time, like him and Karen. That's finally a thing. I mean, I should have maybe put a spoiler warning before that, but I mean, if you read the last book, you saw it coming a mile away, so am I really spoiling it, or do you want your handheld? Like, come on. Are we playing Game Boys? Do you need your handheld here? So, with that said, let's get into the meat and potatoes, as Papa Nux would say. We're going to go through this in chronological order, because how the hell else would you do it? So, first little thing I've put down here is McCoy raising the stakes. Blackstaff McCoy, Chapter 3, we have a discussion between him and Dresden, and that's where we start to see some stakes getting raised. And I thought Jim kind of... he was trying to raise the stakes very early in the book. And in this particular part, in my opinion, he failed. Because Grandpa is trying to convince Dresden, this isn't like it has been before, it's different, blah, 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 you don't know what you're getting into. Really? I'm supposed to believe that the guy who genocided the Red Court, who killed his baby mama, who is arguably one of the most knowledgeable people on the planet when you look at percent by population about how horrible the world really is. I'm pretty sure Dresden knows what the stakes are, McCoy, but thanks for trying to convince me he's still new. I didn't appreciate that from McCoy, and I'm very curious if Mr. Butcher actually thought he sold that, because he didn't sell it to me. Not by a long shot. Next on the list, the Karen situation. Shortly after that, I think, what was this, chapter 4, chapter 5? Something like that. We get to see him and Karen's relationship. And, God, does Harry deserve this, man? Harry is probably one of the most beat up, crapped on characters in all of fiction, and it's just nice to see the guy catch a break. He deserves to have his squeeze. And so does Karen, for that matter. I think Karen can be kind of a hard ass, but she is a solid character, and yeah, she definitely deserves her little piece of pie too. Now we have a situation brewing between Karen and CPD and Harry and CPD because of the whole, robbery. But that does not get addressed any further in this book. It might come up in the next one, but it kind of feels like one of those situations that's going to be put on the back burner until it absolutely has to come to the forefront. And in typical Butcher fashion, he's probably going to make it a problem right when it's absolutely the worst time to make it a problem. So I'm calling that right now. He's going to be like middle of a fight with like some supernatural beastie, and the cops are going to roll up and arrest him. Calling it right now. Next on the list. Oh yeah, this is one my Madre actually brought up. I got her reading this series too, and she brought up an interesting point when we were discussing this. Why does Laura Wraith have 3 favors waiting for her from the Winter Court? Because she does. And she uses that to conscript Harry into her service for this novel. And to me, that's something I want to know more about. Mabs says she used her mind, which tells me Laura probably gave Mab very useful information or made a problem go away for Mab. And I'm very curious as to what that was. I would be very interested in reading one of Jim's short stories to get the tea on that one, as I'm sure many of my fellow Ultra fans would. Now, as I said prior to getting into the meat and potatoes, we got some more info on Dresden and what it means to be Starborn and some of his family history and all that stuff. We get some looks into that, and we find out the Starborn thing is quite literal. I was kind of disappointed at how literal it ended up being. He's born, it's basically a star sign. It's the 13th zodiac. Congratulations, you're Starborn. The outsiders can't brainwash you. That's spoiler alert. That's what it is. The outsiders can't affect him. I was kind of hoping it would be more than that. I was kind of hoping that it would be a little bit more of a superpower than, hey, you're immune to brainwashing. It's like, Harry is so stubborn, I don't think you could brainwash him if you had to. So it's like, that just fits into the character. That's hardly an additional power. I felt cheated on that one. Let's see what else we got. I also wanted to talk about... yeah. Harry's in trouble with the White Court again. Or not the White Court, excuse me. The White Council. Court, Council, White dudes. Basically, what it amounts to is, because of the Winter Night stuff, he has lost the faith of the White Council, especially those of the Senior Council who have never worked with him in the field. And it's like, oh my god, how many times does it's to me, the most unbelievable part about this book isn't the vampires, and it isn't the magic, and it isn't the fairies. The most unbelievable part about the Dresden Files is that this guy has saved these people's asses so many times, and they still be doubting him. They still doubting him. I want to murderize half of the White Council just because of how stupid they are. Give my boy his... So, yeah. They're like, yeah, we don't know if Mab has compromised you. And he's like, well, how would anyone know if they've been compromised by anyone? You think I'm another Peabody? And they're like, you could be another Peabody. And Dresden is like, well, it's in a nutshell. There was another section. They specifically thought they know he's coming from Laura's house because they ambush him on the road. And they see that they use a spell to find out he got laid that day, and it was Murphy. And instead of just telling them, yeah, the White Court vampire didn't brainwash me, I have a very human girlfriend, her name is Murphy, who you've met, Ramirez. Instead of just saying that, he gets all defensive because they say you had sex today. It's like, Harry, this is 2020, my guy. Just tell them you're banging Murphy. Like, Harry's sense of chivalry is so absurdly strong in selective instances, it almost rises to the level of a character inconsistency, and I really, really hate it. Dresden is not so stupid or so hot-headed, even with the Winter Mantle, in my opinion, that he would almost come to blows with, I think it was 5 wardens, Ramirez, his good buddy among them, because he doesn't want to say, yeah, I banged Murphy. Like, yeah, he's proud and he's chivalrous and he has these weird code of ethics where women of... Well, I won't say weird. It's a very noble code of ethics where women are concerned, actually. But it's not so absurdly developed that I think he would risk killing 5 of his good buddies to avoid saying, I banged Murphy. I just don't... I'm sorry, Jim. I don't see it. I think that was very out of character for Dresden. And I'm not sure. When I read that, I was like, any sane man would just be like, yeah, I was banging my human girlfriend. Any sane man would have just said that. The same issue, by the way, the same issue presents with McCoy and the issue with Thomas being his grandson and him not knowing. And I think I have a marker for that. And if I don't, I'm going to come back to it because that pissed me off too. Alright. The Molly situation. We get a look at how Molly is doing. And it's kind of concerning. I'm not going to lie. Like, Molly has always been one of my favorite characters since she started taking a more prominent position. I'm not going to lie. The state she's in has me worried. Like, if you read his short stories, you know that Molly kind of almost killed Ramirez. Heavy on the rough, light on the sex kind of situation happened, and her mantle went crazy and almost killed Ramirez. And I mean, Molly is not really human anymore. It's made very clear in the text here, and I'm just wondering if she's going to stay Molly, if her personality is going to gradually warp. You know what I mean? Because yeah, like I said, she's one of my favorite characters. I see myself in her a lot, but I just really identify with Molly. I'm really worried if she's going to change or not, and I hope she doesn't. Moving right the hell on. Ah, yeah. So, we get to see it, River Shoulders, and I don't remember if River Shoulders has directly shown up in a Dresden novel or if he's only been in the short stories up until now. But he is now in person in the novel, and that makes me happy because River Shoulders was one of those characters that was in the short stories that I really felt like deserved his own novel. Like, River Shoulders is a fascinating concept and a compelling character, and I want to see more of him. Jim. So yeah, we talk to River Shoulders and we find out that Mavra from the Black Court is still kicking, which we, if we thought about it, we knew that. We find out that somehow, by some miracle, Janowska, which we find out in this book, spoiler, the Janowska's name, I'm not sure if I'm even saying that right, it's probably a Native American word and I'm probably butchering it, sorry if that's the case. We find out his name is Blood on His Soul, which is just so metal! And he's alive. Somehow, he survived being turned into red goo on the ice, and I'm very curious to find out both how he did that and how hard he's going to try to murder Dresden as a result. So, can't wait for that one. Ah, yeah. So, the big kind of boom plot point in this book is Ethnu. And I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm saying that right. It's Ethnu, daughter of Balor, the last Titan. She's the one who's actually behind the Fomar. And I did a little bit of Googling, and it turns out Jim Butcher has once again graced us with an intriguing take on actual lore. The Fomar were Irish, they were part of Irish folklore, and Balor was their Mac Daddy, and now his daughter, which does not exist in the folklore as far as I saw, but he created one, is now running the show, and let me tell you, she's scary. She big scary. I don't know how Dresden's gonna deal with her big scary. I shouldn't say they. Jim has hyped this Titan up as, I'll put it to you this way, she kicked Mab through 2 walls. Kicked Mab. Like you kick a rock when you're walking down the sidewalk. She punted her. Like they do the baby in South Park. Done. So, yeah. The whole premise of the book, peace talks, right? The whole thing is that the Fomar are supposed to be having peace talks, and we're supposed to get a resolution of the Fomar situation in Chicago. Well, they bring this Titan and crash the thing and kick Mab through a wall. So, if anyone really thought peace talks were going to happen in a Dresden novel, you don't know Jim Butcher. Was this your first read in the Dresden series? Are you green? Were you actually expecting them? No, you weren't. Jim, I'm sorry. You had no one convinced. I mean, as if the Thomas situation, which I still need to talk about, wasn't enough. Yeah, we knew it. Dresden's there. Shit's gonna go sideways. That's how it is. Now, the last thing, or there's two more things, excuse me. There's two more things I wanted to talk about. Now, through this book, Thomas has been a really big theme. There's a whole other side thing going on with him and Justine. Justine's pregnant. We find that out in the first sentence of the book. And then very shortly after we find out Justine's pregnant, we find out Thomas, for some reason, we don't know why yet, tried to assassinate the head of the Swart Elves. And obviously that's a big no-no. Why the hell would he do that? And he got the shit kicked out of him and locked up. And a big section of the page time, wordage, word count, is spent on trying to figure out how we're going to get Thomas out of this. Now, this is one of my favorite things about Jim Butcher. He invents these crazy circumstances where you're like, no way does he figure out a way to write himself out of this, and then he writes himself out. It's probably the best thing about Butcher. He's so good at doing that. So sure enough, they are able to find a way to get Thomas moved into a less secure location so they can jailbreak him. But at this point, his hunger is devouring his soul because he's been starved. And so Harry, I shit you not, locks Thomas up inside Demon Reach. You heard that right. Harry commits his brother to the island of unspeakable atrocities and evil. I don't know if Thomas is going to make it out of there, man. At least, I should say it this way. The body that used to be Thomas Wraith might make it out of there. The mind and soul that used to be Thomas Wraith? It's dicey, you know? 'Cause, I mean, Harry is insulated from that stuff by the genus loci of the island, by Demon Reach. Thomas is not. While he's in that cell, he is getting fully influenced by all the bad shit on that island. And Harry better get on that situation. He better fix that fast. That's all I got to say about that. All right, and last but not I was just covering that, and so that leads me into the thing with McCoy. So on the way to imprison Thomas on that island, McCoy confronts Dresden because he's so sure that the White Court has his hooks in him. McCoy is sure that the White Court has their hooks in Dresden. And they get into it. And through some very brilliant use of magic, which Molly helped with, Dresden avoids being utterly murderized by his granddad. And let me tell you, in the final moments of the battle, when Dresden tells McCoy that Thomas is his son, or his grandson, rather, it was like so satisfying, but also frustrating, because just like the not telling the wardens about Murphy, I'm sorry, I don't believe for a second that if Harry hadn't just told Ebenzer that, hey man, this is your grandson, a couple of days ago in a calm setting, I'm sorry, it would have worked out better. It would have been fine. Harry does this thing where, and you know, it is especially frustrating because we had an entire book dedicated to Harry learning the lesson that withholding information that people have a right to is very bad. See, girl getting ripped apart by Loop Guru because she didn't know how to properly seal it, and it's Dresden's fault. Now, we have a repeat of history where Ebenzer almost killed Dresden. He almost killed Murphy. He almost killed Laura Wraith and a representative from Monarch Securities. And all of that could have been avoided if Dresden had just been like, hey, by the way, Thomas is my biological half-brother. I don't believe for a second that Dresden is so dense and so I don't believe Dresden wouldn't have told McCoy. I just don't. It's out of character. It's flat out of character. That girl getting ripped apart by that Loop Guru had a lasting effect on him. From then forward, we have not seen Dresden withhold seriously important information from someone who had a right to it unless it was literally a matter of life or death. And this book, that rule went out the window. Twice! So, I'm frustrated with that character inconsistency. Outside of those bitches, the book was great, and I'm mad that it was split in two because I want to know if Chicago survives Ethnu, because that's why the Fomar brought her to the peace talks. They're about to wage war on humanity, and that's honestly, I feel that that's the escalation that Jim went with. Instead of raising it to world-ending stakes, the world is going to be completely destroyed. He said, nah, we might make the humans aware of the supernatural. And honestly, that is another one of those ones that that's one of the least believable things about the series, in my opinion. It always has been for me. I'm sorry. Yeah, people like to put their head in the sand to a certain degree, but Dresden lives his life very openly. He casts spells in the middle of the streets of Chicago, a very population-dense city, with startling frequency. I don't buy for a second that the world has not caught on that magic is real. Maybe the governments all know about it, and they're suppressing that knowledge from the populace, but absolutely zero awareness of it from everyone. I'm not buying it. That's my review of Peace Talks, and you can expect a follow-up when Battlegrounds is released later this year.